Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Star Trek lab. This is the 20th video, or the video number 20. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been working with the Dac rules. So what is Dac rule? It is dynamic access control rule. Okay, we opened how we configure this Dac rule. Dac rule, we need to open the Active Directory Administrative Center from the server role or server manager, and then we open tools, and then we open Active Directory Administrative Center. Okay, what is the Dac rules? It is a way that we will use, okay, to control access to certain files by certain users. How this will be done? We will do the following. We will use certain Active Directory attributes. For example, if you open any Active Directory user, you will see that there is something called Organization tab that contains three info. One is the job title, one is the department, and one is the company. Okay, so this is one. And if we also open the Active Directory, any computer, the Active Directory, we will see in the properties of the computer something called location. This is the location of the computer, so we will use this info and the other two infos to control which one should access which file. For example, I can control accessing to the file by the job title of the Active Directory user, or by the department of the Active Directory user, or by the location of the Active Directory user. How this will be done? We will use this three attributes, the job title, the department, and the location. We will use them as classification file types, okay, and we will import them in the classification section in the file server, and then we will use these attributes to tag the files, okay, and then after tagging the files, we can control who can access the file based on the job title or the department or the location. I will give you a little bit of a graph here. If we remember, this is our graph. We have our files are tagged by the file server by the location of the computer and the department and the title of the user. And then after tagging the files, we will use the Dac rules so we can limit certain users in the Active Directory by the job title to access certain files. For example, this is a coordinator or IT coordinator, so he will access the file tagged by his job title, department, location of his computer. And the same for the IT manager, he will access his file based on the files tagged by his title, department, and location. So this will be done using the Dac rules, okay. And the Dac rules, what we will do, the Dac rules, we will configure it using, or it is configured on 4 parts, or it is configured using 4 parts. First of all, we need to take the Active Directory attributes, department, title, and location, and then we need to import these 3 Active Directory attributes to the file server, okay, and use them as classification file types, and tag the files and tag our files, okay, by these 3 attributes. Okay, we will import these 3 Active Directory attributes to the file server in the classification section as classification file types using PowerShell script. Okay, so this is used using a PowerShell script. So we will access the Active Directory Administrative Center, and then we will use, or we will inform the Active Directory that we will use these 3 attributes as claim types. Okay, this will be used to control access to the files and to be used as classification file types, okay, and then we will import them to the file server using a PowerShell script. After importing them to the file server and they are ready as classification file types, we will tag the files through classification rules or manually by ourselves. You can choose whatever you like, and then we will go again to the Active Directory Administrative Center, and every one of these attributes we need to fill it by certain values. For example, if this is the department, we need to fill it with the various departments we have in our Active Directory, and the title we need to fill it with certain values, for example all of our titles in the Active Directory, and the location we need also to fill the location with all of our computer locations in our organization, okay. And these values should typically match what it is written or what is written in the user's properties. So for example, you need to have the job title department. These values should be added to the resource, or to be added through the using the Active Directory Administrative Center, should be typical of what it is in the Active Directory users information. So after doing this, what's called resource properties, every claim, so this attributes is called claims, okay, and the resource properties, it is the values that we will add. So every claim should be filled by values. For example, department will be filled by department names, location will be filled by ship names, titles will be filled in our organization. And at the end, we will make the rule or the condition or the Dac rule. This is the part where we configure the Dac rule. We need the Dac rule to inform us, or to not to inform us, to make a rule how to access the file. For example, we will limit access to the file according to the location, title and department. So this, it is creating the central access rule. This is the Dac rule, and then we need to publish it to all of our users in the domain. We will publish it using a group policy. And then how to apply it, we need to go to the folder or the file that we need to apply to it, and then we right click properties of the file or folder, and then go to the security tab, and then in the advanced options we will find something called central policy. Here we can apply this rule to the files or folders. Okay, so this we have been discussed in the previous video. In this video we will make a new thing, or we will do something else. So this is the Dac rules, okay, and this is the attributes, and this is the tagging of the files. Okay, so in this lab or in this video we will begin configuring, or we need to configure a second domain controller, and we need to configure a second DHCP, and we need to configure a second file server. Okay, all of this, it's a backup for us, because if our first domain controller or our primary domain controller is down, so our secondary or additional domain controller will be up. And also if our DHCP or first DHCP is down, our DHCP failover or partner will be up, so he can it's a backup. And as for the file server, if it is down, we will use the other file server as a backup, and using the DFS technology, the contents on the file server number 1 will be the same as the file server number 2. How this is or how can this be done, let me show you a little bit of a graph. So here I have my laptop, and I have it as desktop, so and so, and my IP address is 192.168.1.100. and then we have our Hyper-V program. So this is our Hyper-V program, and then what we will do, we will have our Hyper-V environment, virtual environment, and this is our domain, which is startrek.local. And then we have our first domain controller, which is starcom lars01. This contains just a moment, contain two things. The first, it contains the following services: the Active Directory, the DNS, the group policy management, the DHCP, and the DFS file server, or the DFS or the file server and DFS, or the file server using the DFS technology. And then we have this DHCP contains, or this file server contains 8 network cards. As I said before, we have or need to configure, or we need to give every branch. So you remember the graph that we have different, or we have a main office and different branches. We need to give every branch certain IP range, and the main office will take another IP range. So we have 8 network cards on this domain controller, with 8 different IP addresses version 4 and 8 different IP addresses version 6. A best practice not to put the DHCP and the domain controller on one server, and actually also a best practice not to put the file server and the domain controller on one server. So because of my hardware limitation, so I put all of them on one server. But if you need to do this, we need to get another server and put the DHCP and the file server on it. Okay, so this is number 1. What we will do in this lab, we will have another server. We will create it. It will name starcom lars.local. These two are virtual servers. Okay, So these are two virtual servers, and they are connected to an internal switch, or something called Hyper-V internal switch. So they are connected to it, so they are on the same network. And the second one, or the second domain controller, or the second server, will be the following. We will have Active Directory, DNS, Group Policy Management, DHCP. This will be the additional domain controller, additional DNS, additional or DHCP failover partner, and the file server and DFS partner, or the second file server and DFS server. And also this will contain eight network cards. So it will be a replica, or it will be the same as the other DHCP, and it will have 8 IP addresses version 4 and 8 IP addresses version 6. So this is it, and my laptop will be connected to the same switch that these two virtual servers are connected to, so I can share my documentations and data between them. Okay, so this is the graph. What we will do, we will create this second virtual server. We will add 8 network cards with 8 IP addresses, version 6 and version 4, and we will put them on the different VLANs. Remember that we need every branch to take a certain IP address from the DHCP, so this will not this will be done according to the VLAN. So every one of these network cards will be on a separate VLAN. So, and I go to every branch and let him connect to a certain VLAN on the server, or a certain network card on the server, so he can take this range of IP addresses. Please refer to my video on the DHCP and the VLANs to know more. So this is what we will do. And there is another graph I need to show you also. This is the first domain controller, and we have 3 roles installed on it. We have the file server, so we have the primary domain controller, and we have the DHCP server, and we have the DFS file server, okay, or the DFS. Actually, this icons, it's not right. This is the file server, and this is the Active Directory, and this is the DHCP. Anyway, so we have 3 servers: primary domain controller, DHCP, first file server, and it's using DFS technology. And we have the second, which will be our second virtual server, and we will have 3 roles installed on it. We will have the additional domain controller, and we will have the DHCP failover partner, and we will have the second file server DFS. And between both servers, primary domain controller and additional domain controller, there will be replication. So both domain controllers will be typical, okay, and we will have our DHCP server and our failover partner will have replication, so both are the same configuration. And at the end, we will have also replication between the first file server and the second file server using the DFS, so they will have the same data on both servers. So this, we will do this in this video, okay. So let's begin, or let's see how this is done. So here you go, we will begin the video. First, I have created the second virtual machine, okay, and I have installed Windows on it, and I have added the network cards. All of this I have done it with the first domain controller and the first virtual machine. Please refer to my video concerning this one, because I don't need to repeat myself. I have done the same steps. So what I will do, I now have this virtual machine have Windows installed on it. I will go and just give the network cards on this virtual machine, or the 8 network cards on this virtual machine, the different IP addresses. So we need to go, what I'll do, we need to go here, and I need to configure these 8 network cards on this server to give them these ranges of IP addresses, version 4 and version 6, okay. So we will do this now, and we will begin our video. So here we will go and open our first domain controller. I need just to make sure that the range of IP addresses is correct. So we will go and configure or put static IP addresses for the 8 network cards on the second virtual machine, which will be an additional domain controller, DHCP failover, and a second file server. So here, this is the second virtual machine, which is completely new, still we didn't join it to the domain. So we will go and begin configuring it. I have changed it, its name to be starcom-lars02, so I have changed the name of the machine. Now we will put IP addresses or static IP addresses for the 8 network cards, IP version 4, IP version 6, and we all know that the domain controller should have a static IP address. So now we begin configuring the static IP addresses for the 8 network cards. We have done this with the first virtual machine, so it's a repeat, or it is repeated, so anyone can pass it if he knows how to do it, but just bear with me, or please follow it. So now we will go to the network connections, and then we begin configuring or putting the IP addresses one by one. So here we have 8 network cards. This is for 8 networks. Okay, let me also show you a little bit of a graph here just to remember what is it. So if you go to the this graph, let me show you all. So here we have the Star Trek diagram. So here we have the main branch or the Starfleet command center, and we have the ships. Okay, every one of them is, this is the main branch and these are branches. I need the computers in this main branch here to take IP addresses different than every branch, and every branch takes an IP addresses different than the other one. So we will have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 different IP subnets, version 4 and version 6, and we will have then the 9th IP address will be for the main branch. So the main branch will take IP addresses from a different range than the branches. Okay, and all of this will be done using a DHCP. Okay, and we will use this through a VLAN. So we will put every computer in every branch, we put it on a separate VLAN. So for example, this Starcom Fleet Command Center will have its computer on VLAN 2, and this will be on VLAN 3, VLAN 4, VLAN 5, VLAN 6, VLAN 7, VLAN 8, VLAN 9, VLAN 10. So every one of them will take a certain IP address from the DHCP. And also the 8 network cards on the DHCP will be on the same VLANs on the computers. For example, if this computer in main branch on VLAN 2, it will talk to the network card on the DHCP server, which is connected to VLAN 2. And the same, for example, if this PC is on VLAN 3, it will talk to the network card on the DHCP, which is on VLAN 3. So this will be done. Let me show you how this will be done. I can also show you a little bit of a graph about what is the VLAN. So let me show you all a little bit of what is the VLAN here. So we remember all, if you go there, so here you go. So remember, this is our DHCP and this is the 8 network cards. Every network card will be on a different subnet or will distribute a different subnet. Okay, and it, for example, the first network card will be on VLAN 1 and the computers in Colombia will be on the same VLAN, so it will take from the range of IP address that this DHCP will take. For example, if this is on for example, let me show you all here. This is, for example, this is the third card. Its range is 192.168.5.2. So if it is there, or it is connected to VLAN 2 and the Certus computer is connected to VLAN 2, he will take 6, or he will take from the range of 6, okay, or will take the same range from this network card. Anyway, this is the VLAN concept. So you can all return to it or return to my video and see how this is done. So now we will go to the network and sharing center and begin putting static IP addresses for the 8 network cards. We will have them as IP version 4 and IP version 6. Okay, and we need what to do. We need to put static IP address for the domain controller or this virtual machine that will be a domain controller or additional domain controller, and to put the DNS server so we can join them to the domain. So the DNS server will be the IP address of our first domain controller, which is acting as in the same time acting as a DNS. So we will give, or we put on every network card a static IP address, and we will give it the DNS that it will reach, or it will communicate to connect to the domain. So here what we will do, we will go to the network and sharing center. So this is the second virtual machine, and we have 8 network cards. So we'll begin configuring every network card to put static IP address to it and the DNS server to it. Remember, we have 8 DNS servers because we have on the first domain controller 8 network cards. So every card will connect to a certain DNS. Okay, I will show you all this here. So here, this is the first network card. Its range will be 192.168. So this is the first network card on the second virtual machine. So the first range is 192.168.1, and our first domain controller is 2, so this will be 3, and the DNS will be 192.168.1.2. so this will be, do it, okay. Here it will be 192.168.1.3 because our first domain controller is 2, and then we'll put the DNS 192.168 okay, 0.1.2. And remember, after promoting this server to be a domain controller and DNS, we need to fill this alternative DNS with the IP address of the server on the 8 network cards, on the IP version 4 and IP version 6. And we need to go to the first domain controller and go to every network card connection setting and put the alternative DNS to be for this server. Okay, so we need to do both. Okay, sorry, we need to put here the DNS of the first domain controller. So the second domain controller will be here, and we need to go to the network connection setting on the first domain controller and put the secondary DNS to be this virtual machine. Don't worry, we will see this. Okay, so this is the first network card, and this is the IP version 6. Remember the Excel sheet that we have done, so you need to go and see it. Okay, or you can return to the first domain controller and see the ranges. So the second domain controller will have only, or it is +1, so if the IP is 2, then this will be 3. Okay, and we will do the same for every one of them. Okay, so now this is the second network card, and it will be 192.168.2.3 because the first domain controller is 192.168.2.2. okay, so this is the second network card, 0.3 subnet mask, and then the alternative DNS 192.168.2.2. okay, and then the second, or the IP version 6, we need to put also the DNS. So we will put, it will be 3, and then it will put the 2, or the second, or the DNS IP version 6. All of this we have done in the previous video, the second or third video in the series, so please refer to it to be connected to what we are doing. Anyway, this is all bits and pieces, or it's already, you can return to it and do it. So this is the third network card, and we will check the VLANs, of course, and then we will put here 192.168.3. this is the third subnet. It will be 3.3 and then 255 and then 192.168.3.2, and we will do it. Okay, and then okay, we need to go to the fourth one. Okay, we have done this. We need the fourth card, so this is it. I am just here confirming. Okay, so this is also the third one. So Ethernet, this is the IP version 6. We also do the same. We will put the static IP address and the DNS IP version 6 address. We have 8 IP or DNS servers IP version 4, and we have 8 DNS IP version 6 on the first domain controller. Okay, so now we will do it, and okay, and okay, and then this is the third one, and then we have the fourth. We'll do properties, and we'll have here, and then we'll have, this is 192.168.4, okay, point 3, okay, and you have 192.168.4.2, okay, and then we will continue. I'm just revising. Okay, this is IP, I think I put IP version 4, then I need to put IP version. This is the first domain controller. I'm just revising every network card. So this is the fourth network card, so I am seeing if I am working correctly. I said before it will be +1, so the IP of the second virtual machine will be +1. So if the first virtual machine is 192.168.0.1, this will be 0.2. okay, so this is the IP version 6. All of this, it is in the Excel sheet, and it is in the first or second video in the series. If you need to return to it to revise, okay, because we are doing the same, but will be a little bit of difference when we begin configuring the DHCP failover in the upcoming video, and the replica or configuring DFS replication. This will be the difference, but this we have done this before in the beginning of the series. Okay, so now this is the fifth network card. It will run at 2.1.168.5.3, and then we will have 255 to 55 is subnet mask, and 192.168.5.2, and then okay, and then okay, and then we put the IP version 6. So I'm just revising here from server 1 and server 2. So this is the fifth network card, okay, on the first domain controller. So I am just revising the IPs and see the IP version 6 IPs, so I can put it. Okay, I think it will be 5. Okay, so 3. Okay, and the subnet will be subnet mask will be 53, and this will be 2. Okay, this is correct. So we have 3 cards going, or we are still working with the last 3 cards, and we have IP version 4. We will go there and put 192.168.6.3, and then we'll continue. Okay, 168.6.2, then okay, and then IP version 6. We'll continue doing the same. So I'm just revising here. I can go to the 6 or the 6 network cards on the first domain controller and see the IP of version 6, and then I'll continue. So you can open the first domain controller and see the subnets, so you can know what is the IP address or the correct IP address. Okay, so here we'll put it. And then the prefix or the subnet prefix, it will be 53, and then this is the preferred DNS. Remember, we need to fill the alternative DNS on the first or the additional domain controller and the primary domain controller after promoting this server. Okay, so okay, close. Okay, we have the 7th card. And after that we will check the VLANs. So we'll go and check the VLANs on this virtual machine. So 192.168.7.3, okay, 255.55, and then 192.168.7.2. okay, and then IP version 6. And then we have, still we didn't put the okay, we have put IP version 6. So this is it. We need to put the last one, or the last network card. We didn't put IP version 7, so we put it here. And then put the subnet mask, then put the preferred DNS. So I think this is the last one. No, we have another one, the 8th network card, and then we'll do it and put the last one. So anyway, I think we'll pass it real quickly here. So we will go, and so here what we have done, we will go to the setting of this virtual machine, or the second virtual machine, and we will see the VLANs. So here we will just confirm that the VLANs are correct. So for example, here this is VLAN 8, this is the 8th network card, it will VLAN 8, and this will be VLAN 2. So we have VLAN from 2 to 8, and the same applies for the first virtual machine. So this is VLAN 2 to 8. okay, so for example, if I need to create a virtual machine or a workstation to connect to the domain and to take a certain IP address, I need it to take IP address from this network card on this DHCP server. So if this is VLAN 8, I will put my workstation or VLAN 8, so it will take IP address from the 8th network card IP address range. Okay, so we will do this. So you'll tell him okay, and then we need to go and complete our configuration. So we're just revising everything. So here this is the first also virtual machine. We need to go and complete the 8 network card, okay, and then we need to see the details, okay, or configure the details, sorry. So here we'll configure it. So sorry, here just we'll do here what we'll do. So we will go and configure the 8th network card to be 192.168.8.3, and this is it. And then we will configure, okay, the preferred DNS, and then this is the IP version 4, then we have the IP version 6. So now we have completed our configuration. We need to promote this server to be a domain controller. So let's wait for a moment. So here this is it. So here you go. Now we will go to, sorry guys, we'll be on 41. Anyways, just a moment. So here we will go and continue, just a moment. Here we will go and configure. Okay, so here just a moment, here just to go, we'll promote this server to be a domain controller. So I have begin the configuration. So here we will tell him to add the role, and then we need to tell him to add a domain controller to an existing domain. This is, we do not make a new domain, we will add a domain controller to an existing domain. So we'll open the manage and add file server role, and then we will add the Active Directory domain services, and then after adding it we will promote the server to be a domain controller. So here we will begin this process. We have done this before also, so you can refer to my previous video to see it. So here just we'll do this, okay, just a moment. So here we'll add a domain controller, and then I need to select the domain. So we'll ask for a user in my domain, so I can have StarTrek.local appear, so I can select it. So this is my domain admin account. So here I tell him okay, and then for a couple of seconds, okay, again for a couple of seconds, here is my start trick. Again we will go there, again. So here we will take a little bit of time, and this is start trick.local. I tell him okay, and then we will begin configuring, okay, different settings. So now they will configure it as a DNS server. So we have 8 DNS servers, and the global catalog, we have discussed these two options before in many previous series, and we will put password for the Active Directory restore mode. We also have discussed what this mode is for. So we will do this. We will begin configuring the password for the Active Directory service restore mode. And then next, also, and then he says that he needs to replicate. So I said before, this will be additional domain controller, so he will replicate with the primary domain controller. If you have more than one additional domain controller, so you can tell him any domain controller, but you have only one primary domain controller, you can choose it, but I will leave it any domain controller. So this will take a little bit of time, but we can pass it real quickly here. So here again, it will, just a moment guys, just a moment. So here we will continue. This is the location of the database of the Active Directory, and the log files for the database, also the log files for the Active Directory, and the sysvol folder. All of this we know it. Tell him next. We have discussed every one of them in previous videos or previous series. And then next. So it will take a little bit of time, but we can pass it real quickly. So here, what we have done, here we will begin configuring, or it will begin installing, was successfully configured. Okay, just a moment here. So we will go there. It tells us that we need to sign out, and it has already configured or promote this server to be a second or additional domain controller, and it needs to restart the server. So now we will log into the new server with my domain admin account, and then begin doing certain configurations. We'll make a custom console and put all of our consoles in it, the Active Directory and computers console, the DHCP console, the DNS console, every console we need, we will put it in the custom console. And remember, after doing this, we need to go to the network connection setting on the first, or on the additional domain controller and the primary domain controller, and put the alternative, or fill the alternative DNS with both of their IPs. In the first, or the primary domain controller, will put the IP address of the second domain controller in the alternative DNS properties in the network connections in the first domain controller, and the opposite will be done on the second domain controller. Okay, now it's using, or it's working with the PowerShell script. it's working, or it is applying the Active Directory login script, the one that we have configured in the beginning of the series. So it will take a little bit of time. I need to pause it also really quickly. So here we can see that the PowerShell or the Active Directory login script is applied. This is the icon of this PC. And then it will begin configuring the different scripts or the different lines in the Active Directory login script. These are the registry keys, the one for adding the English and Arabic keyboard, and the one for changing the time to local time zone, and a lot of things. Please refer to my previous videos concerning this one. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here we have logged in or have promoted this server to be a domain controller. We can see that this is my home Active Directory home folder, and this is my department share or all ships DFS. So now we need to go and copy a couple of things from the first domain controller. This is one of the IP addresses of the first domain controller. We will copy the idle log off folder. This is a folder that contains the software that logs off the server after 3000 seconds. Okay, so I need this to be on my server, so I don't need to be logged in on the server all the time. This is also best practice, not to be logged on the server. Always log off from the server. And then we will copy a couple of things from this is the folder of scripts from the first domain controller. Here I have a couple of programs I need to install. So I need to install the 7-zip program. This is a program for extracting and compressing files, and the classic shell program to change the way of the start menu of the Windows Server, and the Firefox browser, and the VLC program. This is a program for media, for running media. And then we will make start and put run, and then we put MMC, this to create a custom console. So now we will add all of the consoles we need. This is also best practice to have everything to be in one place, so you don't need to open different consoles with different windows. So we need to add all of them in one console. We have done this in the first domain controller. So we will add different consoles. We will add computer management, we can add the event viewer, we can add the DNS, we can add the disk management. You have all of these consoles you can choose from. And when we begin configuring DHCP, we'll add DHCP console in it also. So you are adding a lot of things. This is the event viewer, I think, yes. And then we have added the DNS. We'll add the group policy management console. And when we add the file server, we will add it here. We will add services also, just to check if there is any service it's not running on the domain controller. So after doing all of this, we need to save it, or save this console and give it a name. So we will save as file, save as, and put it on the desktop. So here we'll give it a name, Starcom or Starfleet Command Center, for example, 2, because we have one on the first domain controller. And then we begin configuring the different programs. So I'll configure the 7-zip program. Next. Okay, it's very simple, we don't need a lot of things to do. So this is a free compressor and extractor. Okay, so now we have done. Then we need to install the classic shell. and after installing the programs we will make a final restart to the server so we can confirm that all of the group policies are applied, and to give the Active Directory login script a second chance to be applied again. So now it is installing. We will empty the recycle bin. Okay, this is the theme. So next, we know all the classic shell and what does or what it does. Okay, this is also a good program. It's also free, and it's have a group policy. You can control it from the group policy management console. So we will pause the video, I think, until it finishes. Okay, and then we will go again. We will make a restart to the server. Okay, we can see that the Firefox is installed already. I have installed the Firefox, so we have installed all of the programs. We will make a final restart to the server, and then we will log in again to confirm that the login script is applied. Okay, so we'll see that in a moment. So this is the second domain controller. We can see that the welcome screen is there. It is Star Trek Universe, and then we will log in again. We will use my domain admin account. So here is most of the group policies, their names, and we will see that here you go, that the group policy, just a moment. Here you can see that if we take a little bit of time, okay, we can see here, just a moment, that the time, it is Cairo local time. This is done by the login script. So if you go there again, we can see that the English and Arabic, it is added. This is also done by the login script, and the time is changed to Cairo, and the name of the PC and the icon of this PC, it is on the desktop. We can see the department shares. Okay, we can see all of the DFS of all chips. And because Karim Raouf, he is not a member of any ship, so he doesn't see, for example, I'm not a member of Colombia, so I will not see the share of Colombia. Okay, so now we will shut down the second domain controller, and by this we have reached the end of our video. In the upcoming video we will begin configuring the DHCP Failover partner, and we will begin configuring the file server, the second file server, and we'll begin configuring another DFS or additional DFS, and we'll begin configuring the replication between the first file server and second file server. So all of this will be done in the upcoming video. Now I am just shutting down the machine. So hope this video is informative for you all, because I think this is the end of the video. Hope this video is informative for you all, and until the upcoming video, thank you for watching. Thank you.